Hello everyone, welcome once again to our financial literacy program because I believe that if Africa is going to change, then we have to embrace the importance of financial literacy. And today we are going to talk about the mindset shift. And let me begin by a few statements that what differentiate the rich men and poor are two things. One, the state of mind, and two, their way of doing things. The Bible says in Proverbs 22 verse 2 that the rich and the poor meet together and the Lord is the maker of them all. But then my question is, what comes to separate the rich and the poor, knowing that God is the maker of them all? But at the end of it, you find there are those who become rich and there are those who become poor. What is the disconnect? What is the disconnect? And that is what I want us to talk about, the mindset shift. The mindset shift. The key thing that differentiates the rich and the poor, it is the state of their thinking and their way of doing things. So it's not just enough for you to know the way they think. You need also to go an extra mile and know how do they do their own things. How do they do their own things? And now, I would like us to understand that the longest distance ever is not a physical distance. If you were to decide today to fly maybe from Kenya to a different country like United Kingdom or US, you might think that that is one of the longest physical distance, but it is not true. The longest distance, it is the distance of mental transformation. That is aligning your mind to guarantee you the results that you want. Because that is where we have been having a real great disconnect. And now, I would like us to go back to understand what is money. Because all of us, we normally rise up every day, we go to work, chasing about money, but we never sit down to ask ourselves, what is this thing that we have been looking day in, day out? What is this thing that our forefathers was chasing? What is this thing that we found our parents looking for it? And we too, we are still in the same rat race, we are still in the same financial crisis, but we don't want to take a step back and be able to understand what is this money. And now, for me to answer you, the question about money, I would like us to journey back to the 17th century, the 18th century, the 19th century, and the 21st century. And I believe all of us, we can remember very well that today we are in the 21st century. And the 21st century is the era of information and technology. I want you to get that. That the era we are as 21st century, it is the era of information and technology. The previous era was an industrial era. That is the 20th century. It was an industrial era, whereby that is when you found factories, and then that is the place that you found the introduction or production of goods and services. That is in form of industrialization. That was in the 20th century. But in the 19th century, that is where we found what we call the agrarian revolution or the farming. And then before the agrarian revolution, previously, we had what we call hunters and gatherers stage. But now, how did men used to survive in the hunters and gatherers age? They used to use two critical things. That is number one, energy and skill. But the main purpose of their energy and skill was to do hunting during the day, and in the night, this energy and skill was supposed to be used to do the fishing. So energy was very important to do the hunting, that is chasing the squirrels, chasing gazelles, and whatever needs to be done in the hunting. Now, during the night, they also needed the energy to do the fishing. So they needed two things. Get it right. They needed energy to do the hunting and fishing, and two, they needed the skill, and they needed what? Energy. So they never, whatever we call money today, they never needed money. What they needed for them to survive, they needed energy, one, two, and also they needed skill. That is during the hunters and gatherers age. Then we came to the agrarian revolution. Agrarian revolution, this is where farming was done. This is where we find agriculture, the genesis of agriculture. But now they still needed two things. They needed energy and they needed skill. But now energy here was energy to do farming and also skill to do farming. So there is no aspect of money. I want you to get it right. There is no aspect of money being mentioned in the hunters and gatherers age, and there is no aspect of money also being mentioned in the agrarian age. Then after the agrarian age, that is when we came to what we call the industrial age. This is where the factories were introduced, factories to do massive production in terms of products and services. And this is where again the school system was introduced. That is the genesis of the HR, the genesis of the accountants, the genesis, all the departments that we find in organizations. The genesis was begun in the industrial age. But now when we came into the 21st century, we still needed energy and skill. But now it was no longer, this is where the difference is. It was no longer about the muscle power, but the brain power. It was no longer about working hard, but working smart. I want you to get, so there are two things that are common from the hunters and gatherers age, the agrarian age, the industrial age, and what we call the information age. That is the 21st century, the information and technology age. So there are two things that were common. Number one, energy and skill. That is in the hunters and gatherers age. In the agrarian revolution, energy and skill also was one of the requirements. In the industrial age, again, energy and skill was needed, but to operate the machines in the industry. And in the 21st century, we see also energy and skill was needed. But the difference is that it was no longer about the muscle power, but brain power. It was no longer about the working hard, but working smart. But now, if you operate, we are in the 21st century. If you dare do the mistake of operating in the 21st century as if you're operating in the 18th, 17th, and the 19th century, you won't survive. You won't make it. You won't crack the financial code as far as financial freedom, riches, and wealth is concerned. Can you imagine in this 21st century that you are doing hunting during the day and in the night fishing, you thinking that you are going to be rich or wealthy? So there are two things that has been, they have been evolving. The education has been evolving since 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, and today we are in 21st century. So there have been an involvement, an evolution of education, and there's been an evolution of skill. So poverty is not lack of money, it is a state of mind. In fact, the moment you refuse to transform your mind, shift your mind, I don't need to be a prophet, you have chosen the road and the path of poverty. Because from the 18th century, 19th, 20th, and 21st, we have seen that there has been an evolution of energy and an evolution of skill. Now, if that has been constant, now what do you need to do in this 21st century? Now, because we are in the era of information and technology, I want you to note this. There are two types of information. There is what we call general information. General information. General information. And two, there is what we call specialized information. Now, information is not just information. There are ranks and there are levels of information. The moment you acquire general information, you just become general or you just become average. But if you want to rise to the top, leave the crowd of 80% and rise to the crowd of top 10%, top 5%, and top 3. Then you have to graduate from the general information into the specialized information. The general information just means general. You just become average. But when you want to rise, to grow into the levels of being a master in whatever you do, then you have to graduate from the general information to a specialized information. This is where you find specialists, the likes of cardiologists, I know there's a difference. I know you understand that there's a difference between the general doctors and the specialized doctors. There's a difference between a normal general doctor and a specialized cardiologist. And who is paid high? I believe that you'll agree with me. The highest paid are the specialists, not the general doctors. And now, because I've explained what is money, or the genesis of where money started, then what is money? I'll give you 3 definitions of money. That money, number 1, is a medium of exchange. Allow me to write here. Money is a medium of exchange, which means money flows in exchange of something. So if you don't have something that you're offering in exchange of money, and when I talk about this money, I don't talk about, I'm talking about the paper currency. Because as time goes, you will see that what you think is money is not money. So, but what you call money is a medium of exchange. 2, money flows through the solving of a problem. Money flows through the solving of a problem, which means if there is no problem solved, forget about the flow of the paper currency. That is why it is called current. So if there is no problem that is being solved, forget about money flowing towards your direction. And number 3, money flows in exchange of value. Money flows in exchange of value. So if there is no value that you are offering, forget about the money flowing towards your direction. If there is no problem that you are solving, then forget about money flowing towards your direction. If there is no value that you are offering, then forget about money flowing towards your direction. So what we normally call money is not money. In fact, it is fake money. It is a phantom. When in the era of fake money, what happens is that the rich and the wealthy use the fake money to create real money. But now the poor and the middle class use the fake money to become more poor and poor. What do I mean? When I talk about the fake money, I'm talking about the paper currency. I believe you understand. Whether it is 1,000 note or whichever, depending on your currency denomination. So this one, the 1,000 note is not money. It is just a paper currency. And this is what I am calling fake money. This is fake money. You don't have real money. You have a phantom. But now you are supposed to use the fake money to create real money. And I've said that the rich and the wealthy, they take the fake money to create real money by making themselves richer and richer. But poor take the fake money and it makes them more poor than before. How do the rich and the wealthy behave? How do they behave when they come in touch with the fake money? What they do, they create real money by creating cash flow generating assets. They use the fake money, the phantom money, to create cash flow generating assets. But the poor and the middle class, this is the difference. That is why I spoke about the mindset shift. But the middle class, what they do, instead of buying cash flow generating assets, that like the rich and the wealthy, what they do, they buy liabilities. So the rich and the wealthy, they buy assets. Not just assets. They buy cash flow generating assets. But now the poor and the middle class, they buy liabilities. What are assets? Asset is something that puts money in your pocket. That is the simple terms of an asset. Anything that puts money into your pocket, that's an asset. Liability, anything that takes money away from your pocket, that's a liability. But now I want us to graduate. The main essence of this teaching is for us to develop a mindset, to graduate our mindset from a poor mindset to developing a wealthy stroke, a rich mindset, because that is where the difference comes in. That is graduating from the poor mindset into developing what we call the rich and the wealthy mindset. So I've spoken about two categories of money. I've spoken about the real money and the fake money. And the real money are assets that generates cash flows. But fake money, you use fake money to generate real assets. When I talk about this money is fake, it's because the power to control the power of that paper currency is not in your hands. It's being controlled from somewhere else. And that is why people keep on complaining about the economy. I've heard so many people telling me, oh Nick, that the economy that we are operating in today is not the economy that we are operating in 5 years ago. If you are a victim of this, then you have been operating under a fake money. If you are a victim of inflation, the fluctuation of inflation, you are complaining about the cost of living, then you have been a victim of fake money. Because these are things that you cannot control. You cannot control the economy, and you cannot control the rate of inflation or the fluctuation of inflation. You cannot determine whether the inflation is going to go high. You cannot determine, or the inflation is going to go down. You cannot determine anything. So this inflation rate is determined from somewhere else. And the state of the economy is also determined from somewhere else. So if you don't have the power to determine the state of the economy, then it's a confirmation that you have been operating with fake money. If you don't have the power to determine the rate of inflation, then it's a confirmation that you have been operating with fake money. But now, you need to graduate from operating with fake money to creating your own real money. What do I mean by real money? Real money are not affected by the economy. And real money is not affected by inflation. For instance, what if you buy land? This is what I call real money. What if you buy land? Will the economy, what is the probability of the economy affecting the value of your land? Will the value of this land go low, or it will go high? So you have the power to determine the value of your land, in that in case this land you bought at $1 million, in 2, 3, 5 years, you will determine the pricing. You have the power to determine the pricing of this land. But now, if you are operating with fake money, that is the 1,000 notes that you call money. If you are operating with these 1,000 notes, then you don't have the power to determine the value of this paper currency. because the value is being determined from somewhere, and that is most of the time the value of this paper currency is being determined from the central bank. That is why you hear they have bank reserves. That bank reserves is to balance the value, the value of this paper currency. So the power is not in your hands. So the power of this value, paper currency, is being controlled from somewhere else. But there are things that you can control. As I was saying, there are two main categories of money. This is what we call real money and fake money. Real money and fake money. What are the real money? Real money are the asset, cash flow generating assets. Real money simply means cash flow generating assets. But fake money don't have the aspect of cash flow generation. But now, wisdom demands that you also, what the rich people do, they take the fake money and create real money. That is in terms of coming up with cash flow producing assets. But what the poor and middle class men and women do, what they do, they take the fake money and instead of buying cash flow generating assets, what they do, they buy liabilities. And that is what I'm talking about. That this is what differentiates the rich and the poor. The state of their mindset. In that, how do they think? The moment they come in touch with this fake money, how do they reason? The moment they come in touch with this fake money, how do they do their own things? Because there are two things here. There's one, to know how the rich and the wealthy think, and two, to know how they do their own things. Let me clarify this. What is the importance of knowing how they do their own things? You could be having my number. Let's say, for instance, that my telephone number is 0729 606060. And then you decide to alter the number. Instead of starting with 0729, you start from the backward 606060, and then you come 2907. Even if you dial that number, you will not be in a position to reach out to me simply because you took my number, but you never dialed my contact in the right way. In the right way, that is what we call the mental syntax. It is not enough to know, but to know how it is also done. Now, and the moment the rich people they come in touch with the fake money, what they do, they buy cash flow generating assets. In that is where they come up with starting businesses. 1, 2, they enter into capital markets. 3, they enter into real estates. And 4, they enter into businesses. So there is what we call the trinity of wealth. In the trinity of wealth, we have number 1, business, 2, real estate, and 3, capital markets. If you are noting down that the trinity of wealth, 1, business, 2, real estate, and 3, capital markets. So that is what has been differentiating us between the rich and the poor. Now, I want to talk about something here, because we have spoken about the two main categories of money, that is the real money and the fake money. Now, when it comes to mindset shift, because I remember in my opening remarks, I said the longest distance is not physical distance. The longest distance is not to fly maybe from Kenya, maybe to United Kingdom, or fly from Kenya maybe to Australia or to America. The longest distance is what I normally call the mental transformation distance. Are you not surprised that the Israelites took 40 years in the wilderness and they still never made it to the promised land? Are you not sure that this mental transformation that God was trying to achieve, he still never achieved even after 40 years? So the longest distance is not physical distance. It is not from where you are to your up country. The longest distance, it is mental transformation distance. Mental transformation distance. Now, there are two main things here when it comes to mental transformation. There's a graph that I've drawn here. you can see we have y-axis and we have x-axis. In the x-axis we have what we call time, the factor 1 time, and the factor number 2 we have what we call financial intelligence. This FI stands for financial intelligence. So as you purpose to work on your mind, that is to graduate. Because you remember earlier again I said also that any time that you come in touch with money, you ought to activate the 3 dimensions of money. I say that money, anytime you come in touch of money in form of your salary or in form of your income, you are supposed to activate other 3 dimensions. That is 1, the past. You are supposed to activate anytime you receive your salary, anytime you receive your income, you ought to automatically activate the past, activate the present, and 3, activate the future. When I talk about the past, these are the bills that you have incurred. These are bills. When it comes to present, mobilities, the amount of money that will carry you along that month. And then future, this one we talk about savings and investments. So anytime you receive your salary, anytime you receive your income, you ought to activate the 3 dimensions of money. Activate the past, activate the present, activate the future. The moment you activate the past, you activate the present and you forget about the future, then your future life will be more worse than today. Simply because you receive your income, you receive your salary, and you ate everything, including your savings and investments. So if you eat your savings today, then what will you have tomorrow? If you wear your tomorrow's clothes today, tomorrow you'll be naked. If you eat your tomorrow's food today, then tomorrow you'll be hungry. Simply because you never consider the aspect of present, the aspect of past, and the aspect of future. Now, I want to expound about this graph. We have seen we have got the factor number 1. These are the factors that you need in mindset transformation, shifting your mind. That is from being a spender, because all of us, we either, anytime we come in touch with our money, we either spend or waste or invest. But now what happens? Average people spend. Unwise people, I don't want to call them fools, but unwise people waste. But the wise, what they do investments and savings. But now how do you graduate from the mindset of spending and wasting into the mindset of an investor? Remember our scripture in Proverbs 22 verse 2, that the rich and the poor meet together, and the Lord is the maker of them all. The Bible does not say that the Lord is the maker of them. The Lord did not say that He made them so. He made them, but He never determined where they are going to end. So there is a mindset of spending and wastage, but you need to graduate into the mindset of an investor. But in the midst of that journey, we have got 2 main factors. That is factor number 1, time, and factor number 2, what we call the financial intelligence. Now, creating wealth is not a one-day event. It is a process. Those who are on top of financial mountain did fall to the top of the financial mountain. They took step by step to the top of financial mountain. It's only you that you think there's a shortcut of coming out of financial crisis and poverty. There is no way out. If you are going to come out of financial crisis and poverty, then you have to be a master of 2 things. 1, time, And 2, embrace financial intelligence. I'll use the exact words of the wisest man that ever lived in Old Testament. That is King Solomon. He said in his book, that is in Proverbs 4:7, that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. That anything that you want to build in this life, if you want to build riches, if you want to build wealth, then the principal thing, it is wisdom, which is, in the person of building wealth, financial intelligence. Now, because he said that wisdom is the principal thing, that principle talks about the key. You remember the key? I believe all of us, we have a place that we live. Not unless you are a bird, you live on a tree. But if you are a real human being, then you have got a place. And if I'm not wrong, then you have a padlock. And you see, you cannot access your own house. If you lock your house, you cannot access your house without a key. So you will need a key to open your own house. And that is why the Bible says, for you to unlock into the space of wealth creation, you need the key. In Proverbs 4:7, wisdom is the principle. You need the key of financial intelligence to open the space of wealth creation. The wisest man that ever lived, King Solomon, that wisdom is the principal thing. That principle again talks about it is the pillar. For those who have seen the buildings who have got those buildings that are 10-story building, 12-story building, 30, some of them are even 50. The number one thing that is sustaining those buildings is what we call pillars. And King Solomon is saying that wisdom, we say number one is the principle, which means it is the key. That is number one. 2, it also means it is the pillar. What will happen when you remove the pillars of a 10-story building? The whole building will come down as a result of the removal of the pillars. That is what happens when you don't have financial intelligence or financial literacy in your pursuit of building riches, building financial freedom, and building wealth. So if you are trusting God to come out of money problems and you are not interested in embracing financial literacy, you are not interested in embracing financial intelligence, then forget about financial freedom, forget about riches, and forget about wealth, because there is no way out. The only way out is embracing the financial intelligence. Again, the Bible says in John chapter 8 verse 32 that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You cannot be free. Listen, you cannot be free from what you don't know. It is what you know that has the capacity to make you free. Your level, your current state of your financial life is a reflection of what you know. If your money is small, it's a confirmation that your knowledge on money is small. If your money is not enough today, then it is a confirmation that your level of knowledge as far as money matters is concerned, then it is not enough. But if you want to have enough money, then you have to graduate by having enough financial intelligence and enough financial literacy. Financial literacy. So there is no shortcut as far as building wealth is concerned. Now, we have said there are 2 main factors. Don't forget about this. We have said there is a factor of time. When you talk about the factor of time, I have said that creating wealth is not a one-night event. It is not a one-day event. It is a journey. It is a journey. And the journey begins when you make a radical decision, an intentional decision, that from today, I am going to come out of these money problems. I'm going to come out of financial crisis. So it begins by making decision first in your mind and decide that I am going to come out of money problems. I'm going to come out of financial practice. And the most unfortunate thing is that this decision of wealth creation, no one else can make it for you. The government cannot make this decision for you. Your siblings cannot make this decision for you. Your relatives cannot make this decision for you. Your girlfriend or boyfriend cannot make this decision for you. It is your own ultimate decision. And there are two types of decision. You can decide to be committed to wealth creation, or you can decide to be interested in wealth creation. What is the difference? When you are committed, it's like you are saying, whatever it takes, I have to be among the people who will experience financial freedom in life. It's like whatever it takes. But when you are interested, in case of a single challenge, one challenge, what will happen? You will pack your things and give up. And you say that I wasn't serious, I was just trying. But if you are going to make it, as far as experiencing the dimension of wealth, then you have to be committed, not being interested. That is the factor of time. Let me say something also about the factor of time, is that you cannot compare. You see, I realized that the other day that when you want to boil water, it will take roughly 97 degrees. It takes roughly 97 degrees Celsius for water to boil. But when you want to heat gold to a melting point, it takes 1064. So water takes 97 degrees Celsius to boil, and gold takes 1064 degrees Celsius for it to melt. This one is to boil. I know both are important, but can you compare the value of water and the value of gold? You can't. But these are the levels of heating that water has to experience for it to boil, and the gold has to experience for it to melt. Don't forget about this. It takes 1064 degrees to melt, and water takes about 97 degrees Celsius. Let me mention something also, that I say that building wealth or wealth creation is not a one-night event. It's a process. It is something that will take you 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. But the beginning of the journey begins in 1, making decision, and 2, in the mental transformation. So wealth does not begin in your bank balance. Wealth begins in your mind. It does not begin in your bank balance, it begins in your mind. Something else also I read sometimes back, there is what we call the Chinese bamboo tree. Are you aware that the Chinese bamboo tree takes roughly 4.5 years for it to germinate? It takes roughly 4.5 years for it to germinate. So question is, and after 14 days, listen to this. After 14 days, it grows up to 90 feet. Let me repeat this. The Chinese bamboo tree takes roughly 4.5 years for it to germinate. Takes 4.5 years for it to germinate. But after the germination, in 14 days, it grows up to 90 feet. So my question is, did this Chinese bamboo tree take 14 days to grow up to 90 feet, or it took 4.5 years and 14 days for it to grow up to 90 feet? The answer is that it took 4.5 years and 14 days for it to grow up to 90 feet. But my question is, was there anything that was happening in between 4.5 years? Was there anything that was happening? This is where the development was happening. The personal development was happening here. And that is why when you are working on yourself in terms of mental transformation, it is not visible. But it does not mean that you're not doing anything. Yeah, the other day I was telling people that don't sleep too much as if you have made it in this life. And people were telling me that, Nick, you are telling us not to sleep, So I should wake up at around 4 or 5 and go where? I have an answer for you today. Wake up and work on your mental transformation. Because I just told you that the longest distance is not physical distance. The longest distance is mental transformation distance. And you see, the Chinese bamboo tree takes 4.5 years. Somebody just watering day in, day out, daily. And after 4 years and a half, that is when it germinates. But now, before the germination, there are activities that were taking place. Although these activities were not visible. So when you are working on yourself, at times you are not visible. No one can see that you are reading and studying. No one can see that you are developing yourself. No one can see that you are working on yourself. But it doesn't mean you are doing nothing. You are doing something. It will be just a matter of time. And people will begin to admire you. I wish I could be like Nick. I wish I could be like so and so. But people are forgetting, you never just appeared like John the Baptist. You came from somewhere. And that place that you came from, it is the place of personal development. And that is why I'm saying that if Kenya is going to change, if Africa is going to change, then we have to graduate and begin to work on ourselves more than we work on anything else. Because if the Israelites stayed in the wilderness for 40 years and God was trying to change their way of thinking, and still He never made it. That is how powerful it is when you don't make decision to work on yourself. So working on yourself is a serious project. In fact, the greatest and the heaviest project, leave alone the housing project of this government of ours. The serious project is the mental transformation project. Mental transformation project. So the journey of wealth creation begins when you take a decision to work on yourself. And that's what I was explaining about the factor of time. So you have to give yourself time in terms of what we call the gestation period. You cannot conceive today and give birth today. There is that period of conception and that period of delivery. So you have to give yourself time. And the most unfortunate thing, if you don't make that decision today to be in the space of the investors, if you don't make that decision, it will be so unfortunate that because in the next 5 years or 5 years will still come to an end. 7 years will still come to an end. But my question is, by the time 5 years stroke 7 years are coming to an end, where shall you be as far as building your financial life is concerned? Where shall you be? But let me tell you something. Whether you take the initiative or not, 5 years stroke 7 years and even more will still come to an end. So if I were you, other than these 5 years or 7 years coming to an end and finding myself have done nothing, I prefer to begin today the journey of working on myself and building my financial life. That is the factor of time. Factor of time. The factor number 2 is the factor of financial intelligence. There is no way out of experiencing financial freedom. There is no way out of becoming rich, and there is no way out of becoming wealthy unless you embrace the aspect of financial intelligence acquisition stroke financial literacy. And we have seen that in Proverbs 4:7, the Bible says, the wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. So what separates the spenders, SP, the spenders and the wasters? Because most of us, in fact 80% are here. 80% of Kenyans and Africans, we are here. We are either spending or wasting. Average people spend, fools waste. Average people spend, fools waste. But now we are dealing out with this mindset that has been causing endless financial rat race and endless financial crisis. And for you to come out, you need to graduate. Shift your mindset. from this, shift your mindset. Shift your mindset, and the mindset shift comes by working on yourself, just like the Chinese bamboo tree. By shifting your mindset from a spending mindset and a wasting mindset into an investor mindset. So you have a responsibility to make sure you graduate your mindset from a spender and a waster to an investor mindset. Now, spenders, anytime, how do you know you operate under the mindset of a spender? Anytime you come in touch with money, you don't think of saving and you don't think of investing. The number one thing that you do, you think of buying things in form of liabilities instead of thinking of buying assets. Also, wasters, they just buy anything they come across, but they don't think of saving, stroke investing. But now you need to graduate from this mindset. And let me tell you something, it will not be a walk in the park for you to graduate from the spending, wasting mindset into an investor mindset. It will be one of the hardest jobs for you as you graduate. Because in this one, remember, you are trying to create a new path. There's what we call in your mind, there's what we call the neural pathways. So there are pathways that already exist in your mind and that has been perfected for years. Can you imagine, for the last 20 years, for the last 25 years, you have been perfecting on spending, you have been perfecting on wasting, but now you are trying to create a new path of an investor mindset. It will not be easy for you. And that is why it's good to know that it will not be easy for you, so that you can know what you are fighting. It will not be a walk in the park. To graduate from spending mindset, wasting mindset, into an investor mindset. Into an investor mindset. But the moment you get into this place, the moment you get into an investor mindset, saving for you will no longer be a problem. Investing for you will no longer be a problem. Listen to this. I know all of us, we cannot be entrepreneurs, but all of us, we can be investors. We cannot all be starters of companies. We cannot all be entrepreneurs, but we can all be investors. So we don't have, if you really want to experience financial freedom, then you don't have any option of staying in this space of a spender and this space of a waster. You need to do whatever it takes to graduate into this level and into this rank of an investor. As I wind up, let me say this, that life has got two dimensions. We have got what we call the number one, the invisible dimension, and the visible dimension. Life has got two dimensions, the invisible and the visible. But now, it is the invisible. The invisible is so powerful because it is the invisible that controls the visible. Any money that you have not seen in your mind will never reflect in your bank balance. I will say it again. Any amount of money you have not seen nor experienced in your mind will never reflect in your bank balance. Therefore, financial freedom does not begin in your bank. Riches does not begin in your bank balance. Wealth does not begin in your bank balance. Financial freedom, riches and wealth begins in your mind. And that is why you are going back into working and developing yourself day in, day out, making sure that you are learning at least 5 things, what we call the financial intelligences that you need to embrace. That is number 1, how to attract money. These are things when you think of financial intelligence or financial literacy, these are the informations or the educations as far as financial matters is concerned, you need to embrace. And number 1 is what we call how to attract money. You need to learn, how do I attract money? Number 2, how do I make money? Number 3, how do I manage money? Number 4, how do I save money? Number 5, how do I invest money? And number 6, how do I protect money? There are only 6 areas that you need to be a master as far as building wealth creation is concerned. We say how to attract money. 2, how to make money. Number 3, how to manage money. Number 4, how to save money. Number 5, how to invest money. And number 6, how to protect money. Because it will be so unfortunate that you made that effort that you made to enter into the space of an investor, and then you end up losing all your wealth, losing all your riches, simply because you didn't know how to protect your investments or your wealth. It's been your friend and Kingdom Finance Minister, Nicholas Koech. See you at the top.